Hey there, and welcome to Comedians on Technology, People, and Drugs. I'm your host, Sam Joseph, and today we're very lucky to have comedian Calvin Smith with us. Hey, Calvin, it's really great to have you on the show.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Our genuine pleasure. And well, you're a very funny person, and I think well, they always say, you should speak to the audience as if there is only one audience member on the kind of radio or
Hmm.
podcast, and that's easy for us because there's probably only one person listening. Who this week I'm going to call Wendy. Yeah. So no, I think Wendy is beside herself, wanting to understand your comedy origin story. Was it that you came from a sort of a race of comedy salesmen and opened a bar, doing comedy at the edge of a wormhole, or how did it all kick off?
It's unfortunately not quite as interesting as that. No, I've always just kind of been a huge fan of comedy. It was always when I was growing up, like my favorite form of entertainment. So I just used to sort of watch a lot of comedy, basically anything I could find, including things that I didn't even particularly like, but I sort of just liked the sort of rhythm of it and stuff. So I used to watch a lot of stand up, like basically anything I could get my hands on. Um, and then I never really thought anything about it because I've always found that in my groups of friends, I'm not particularly the funniest person there. I've got a lot of extremely funny friends who I think should be on stage much more than I am. So I never really kind of gave it that much thought, and never thought it was something that I could really do. But then I have an incredibly supportive partner who sort of goaded me into it a couple of years ago.
Mm.
At the beginning of COVID, she'd got me for a birthday present a sort of one of these weekend courses where you sort of go and write 5 minutes and instantly forget everything that they told you. uh, but at the end of it, you do one of these sort of showcase ones,
Right.
and it went okay, not terribly, well enough that I sort of thought, oh, well, maybe I should give that a go. And one of the things that the guy who was running the course said was, oh, basically, until you've done 50, you don't know whether you're any good, whether you like it, anything about it. So I sort of thought, oh, okay, well, I'll do 50 and see if I like it.
Mm.
And by about 20 in, I decided, oh, okay, yeah, I really like this,
Mm.
and kept going. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. And out of interest, what was there are many of these courses. I mean, I did one
Mm.
myself, and many of the comedians that we've spoken to have also done these courses. Which one did you do?
I think it was the Laughing Horse one
Oh yeah,
with Jay Sodagar, I
right,
believe his name was.
right, right. Laughing Horse. Yeah, I mean, I'm with the Laughing Horse, which is the same organization in the Brighton Fringe this year. But yeah,
Oh,
right,
right.
yeah. Although maybe
Yeah,
they're
no, well, I've not been
doing
down
something.
there. I've been meaning to sort of do a fringe at some point, but I've not quite pulled my finger out and done it yet.
Mm, mm, mm. Indeed, indeed. And you were saying that, yeah, that the first one kind of went okay. You
Yeah, it was okay. Well, based on how badly I thought it was going to go, it went really
mm.
well. But then I was kind of fully aware when I came off. I was like, that was not professional.
Yes, yes. I mean, I think usually I think the usual story from most of the people we've spoken to is that first one, it's sort of packed with family and friends, and it's, people are all like, oh, these people's first time, so it's a very
Yeah,
forgiving audience, and it's
I
yeah.
was mainly worried about my family and friends coming there. I didn't think they were going to be very forgiving, but
Well, no, I mean it's like indeed, it's kind of yeah, that could be a mixed blessing. But yeah, it's interesting. You're the first person who sort of said, went okay. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say they're like, it wasn't very professional. I guess that already hints at a kind of like you've got very high standards for yourself. Like you're.
yeah, possibly. I mean, I think, yeah, I like to be well, I like to try and be sort of realistic about how well I think I've done. Like, even if I've come out of a gig where I think it's objectively gone well, if I feel like some parts of it I didn't do as well as I could, I'll tend to beat myself up about those a little bit.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I mean a trend that I think I notice is that I'm increasingly as I go on, I'm never satisfied. I'm
Mm.
never satisfied.
Yeah,
There's always more, and you kind of want more and you want more, and I think I'm kind of coming to this point of like, because there was some story that someone was telling me of, some, I forget who the comedian was, but doing a show at the Comedy Store, and getting like, three applause breaks, and
Mm.
from people outside, but oh, that was amazing, and they were sort of speaking to him afterwards. He's like, yeah, not. There's a kind of like, it's almost
Yeah,
like as you improve and the reactions get better and better, your standard for yourself kind of maybe gets higher and higher as time
yeah.
goes
I think
on.
I think that's definitely it. I mean, well, but it's like if you do any hobby that you sort of take seriously, um, you're trying to analyze your skill and see where
Mm,
you're lacking and trying to improve on those things. And especially in a live medium like that, where you're not in control of all the factors, you're never going to get anything perfectly right.
right.
So there will always be things that you can sort of nitpick and stuff. And partly that is kind of the fun of it for me, I think.
Mm,
I think that
mm.
the fact that you can constantly be improving things and going back on, listening to yourself and sort of saying, okay, well, that could be punched up here or whatever.
Yeah, well, no, no, some people have, I don't know if it was even me, have compared it to golf, which I'm not a huge fan of, but there's this idea that, it's one of these things that you can't really perfect. There's
Yeah,
there's kind of, that's why it also almost makes it an interesting thing to be doing. I mean,
but also wildly frustrating, just like golf.
yes, yes, indeed, indeed. I mean, well, I guess various things where you think you've got it just so, and then it turns out not to be just so. Yeah, I mean, for me, after that very first showcase thing,
Mm,
that went really quite. I mean, I think probably went much better than I expected that it might
mm.
go that first time, and so I was suddenly already very excited about doing more. And the following one for me was, I got like, almost zero laughs, and was kind of like almost a total bomb. But still, I think I was already addicted at that point to the kind of like performance, and the trying, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the whole thing.
Well, it is. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I've always been in everything I've ever done. Really, I never think that I have an innate talent at anything. But I'm relentless in a way that a lot of people aren't. I think.
Mm.
Like I'll just
Mm.
keep going in the face of quite a lot of evidence that I should stop.
Yes, yes. I mean, you were saying after 20 you were hooked. I mean, how did the second, third, and fourth go?
Uh, the second one I remember being really bad, but
Mm,
because I had written a little bit more material, I was trying to get through what was probably 7 minutes within five. And I
mm,
remember the MC was getting very frustrated with me for going over, and
mhm.
especially because I was bombing, probably.
Uh-huh.
I remember that one being tensed and a little sort of pressured in a way that the other one hadn't been. But then there was a couple after that that sort of went a little bit better.
Mhm.
I don't really remember them all that
Mm,
clearly as much as the sort of first two.
right,
Although, having said that, I do keep a log of every gig I do,
right.
and I write myself a review after each one.
Do you?
Uh, yeah, although I don't think I had started that by that point, so I
Mhm.
may be I may be out of the woods of trying to go back on my own reviews from the second and third one.
Right, but I guess you had, with that sort of tenacity you referred to, you'd heard from Jay, like, oh, you need to do 50 before you can tell whether you're up for this, and so you were kind of like, well, okay, look, I've got to do the first 50 to find
Yeah,
out either way.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically. I mean, I'm now slightly worrying that I'm putting words in his mouth and he may not have said that, but my memory is that he said that,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I certainly got it in my head that that was like, oh, okay, well, until then, you're just not going to know.
right.
So I just thought, well, 50 is not too bad. That's you
Yeah,
get there in a couple of months.
yeah, yeah. And then you said, and so I mean, after that 20, well, I guess, I mean, two questions I want to wrap together. I mean, after
Mm.
that 20, something clicked. I mean, but also, I mean, had you been doing any other kind of performance thing before? Was this the first time you were doing a performance thing, and what was it about this performing that was maybe different than anything else you'd done before?
Um, well, no, I had done quite a few different sort of things with performance before that. So, I mean, I did a stunning turn as Peter Rabbit in year three at primary school. And then we did a year six production at school where I was the modern Major General from the Pirates of Penzance.
Uh-huh,
But
uh-huh.
that was about the extent of my acting
Yeah.
career.
Hmm.
But then when I left um, college, I was in a band for I want to say 12 years, something like that.
Oh, wow.
So we sort of were playing gigs around London quite a bit, including while we all went off to uni.
Mm-hmm.
And then after uni, we sort of made a proper go of it and did it sort of full time for about 7 years. So I was doing that, and then stopped playing when one of the guys was getting married and having kids, and one of the other guys was buying a house, and it all sort of got a bit more serious. So we all sort of settled down a bit. And then I didn't do any kind of performance for a while after that. But then comedy, I think it's just because I'd been such a huge fan of it when I was growing up,
Right.
and I was just doing it for me. I wasn't doing it because I was in a band with a group of other people, or I was being told to do it for any other reason. So I think it's just I sort of, because it had always seemed so unattainable to me when I was growing up, because I just sort of thought, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yes.
And then after I'd done that first 20, I thought, actually, this doesn't, it's still incredibly difficult, and it's still something you really have to work at, clearly, but it didn't seem quite so ridiculously unrealistic.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. To me, I mean, as I've said many times on the podcast, I tried it when I was sort of like 21 and sort of totally bombed, and just thought, okay. And I hadn't realized that people were sort of preparing things, and I just thought, okay, only special geniuses can do this, and and it was just sort of there as a secret fantasy that maybe one day I would try again, but it was so scary. But you'd obviously had with that performance, you had that experience of like, okay, we're going to try this again, or like how it went, this bit went better, this bit went worse, like that rinse and repeat thing. And then you tried this out, and just so like you say, after that 20, I mean, maybe it's difficult to describe, but what is it about that experience of doing a comedy show, standing up there? What is it that keeps you coming back to it?
The feeling when it goes well is unlike anything else. I think it's just like when you get, you kind of get a microcosm of it when you're just chatting with friends, and if you make a good joke and everyone starts laughing, it's just feels really nice. And when you get a full room of people doing that, and you can keep them doing it for a while, it just feels great.
Yeah.
And also, it's sort of well, I don't exactly know how to put this, but I sort of imagine it to be the same kind of satisfaction that like a carpenter gets when they finish a bench or whatever.
Right.
There's something nice about having constructed something and it being fit for purpose and working, and especially when you've got one that's sort of a relatively new joke that's working every single time. That is incredibly satisfying.
Yes, right. There's this sort of like, the process of creation there, and having created something that works well. Yeah, very satisfying. Yeah, fantastic. And so, you were hooked, and what did the arc look like then? How regularly were you gigging? How regularly are you gigging now? How's it all?
So the first few were quite sparsely populated, I would say. I didn't sort of realize how frequently you have to do it to really start to improve. So I'd say for the first sort of year or so, well, no, hang on. The first sort of 3 months, I'd say it was once every 3 weeks, maybe 4, something like that. And then after that, I sort of started to pick up the pace a little bit and did sort of maybe more close to sort of 1 or 2 a week. But I'm also sort of fitting that in with other hobbies I have. So I kind of couldn't go past that. And then in the last couple of years, I've been trying to make it sort of maybe 3 or 4 times a week if I can. But also that's partly, I've found more gigs that I know I can sort of get spots at, and ones that you can do on sort of Saturday afternoons and things like that. So it's sort of easier to fit more in.
Right.
But yeah, try to keep to about 3 or 4 a week if I can at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a sort of a sweet spot that often I think people say, you need to do that many to improve. Yeah, I mean, I'm just coming off the back of, I just did 7 days straight, partly because I was at the Brighton Fringe Festival, and I think it was too much.
Well, it's also you need space to have a life around it, right? Because also you need to be sort of have time to think and experience things that might actually play into it.
Absolutely.
I've actually been thinking recently I might sort of slightly try to curtail it a little bit, just because I sort of find myself there's quite a lot going on for me at the moment anyway, so I'm not writing quite as frequently as I normally would.
Hmm.
And so if I've got fewer new things to try, I'm kind of
Hmm.
just going through the motions of old stuff,
Hmm.
which has its own, merit and benefit. But
Hmm.
I slightly think, oh, actually, I might trade that off and just spend that time writing a little bit more.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, that maybe nicely leads us into our second question, which is like, how is technology affecting your life and your
Mm.
comedy? And as I'm at pains to say, technology can refer to anything. A pen and paper is technology.
Yeah,
The latest AI model, stone tablets. Even like a sort of a memory mnemonic is a
yeah.
form of technology. And yeah, I'm really interested in how any of these different devices or approaches affect your life and comedy. But it's also a subterfuge. I'm really interested to try and understand your process, as you were just mentioning there about
Yeah, sure.
trying to do more writing. But so yeah, what's going on with you and technology?
Well, I mean, like everyone, I use technology every day.
Mm,
It's just sort of an embedded part of my life, really. My work is all done kind of remotely, so I'm constantly on my laptop for that.
right.
Uh, and yeah, I mean, frankly, I'm trying to get off it as much as possible at the moment. I'm sort of a terrible one for distracting myself with stupid games that are trying to get you to spend money all the time and everything. So
Mhm.
I've just had to delete 4 of those games off my phone just because I was like,
Mm.
you know what, I could be spending this time doing something more
Right.
productive. I'm constantly in a cycle of downloading these, getting very obsessed with them for like 3 weeks, and then getting to the end of that 3 weeks and thinking I've just wasted all of that time, and then throwing a
Mm.
tantrum, down, like deleting
Mm.
them all, and then two
Right.
days later getting new ones. But yeah, in terms of how it affects comedy, I mean, so I use basically what I do is anytime that I have any kind of thought that I think is worth writing down, I put it into a little notes app on my phone.
Hmm.
And then when I'm writing, what I'll periodically do is sort of just review the notes on my phone. Um, and anything that sort of, while I'm reading it, sparks another thought, I'll
Hmm.
start retyping it on my laptop.
Okay.
And then I just write for as long as I can on that subject and just try and fill up as much of a page as I possibly can
Right.
on whatever that was.
Mm.
And I do that with, I don't know, I would say maybe one in every 5 or 6 of the notes that I've actually written down
Okay.
into my phone. And so, yeah, 1 in 6 of roughly, I would say, will spark something that I'd then write out,
Mm.
long form into something more. And then of those bits that I've written into long form ones, I'll come back in a few days, and if I think, oh no, this is crap, I shouldn't have bothered, I'll just chuck that. Well, I don't never chuck it away, but I just sort
Yeah.
of ignore it. And if it's something that I think, oh no, actually that's got some legs, I'll
Hmm.
sit down with it again and try and write anything more that I can.
Right.
And usually those are the ones that I'll be like, okay, well, I'll try that at an open mic,
Hmm.
go and do that, and then if it gets nothing, I'll write it off essentially.
Hmm.
But if it gets something, then I'll sort of usually go back to it and see if I can expand it or tighten it up or anything like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, pretty much the process is notes into my phone, write those notes out again into my Google Drive, try them, and then the ones that work, put them into a bit more of a structured thing where I actually write it all out and sort of have spaces planned and that kind of thing.
Right. And so it sounds, and I think we were talking in the pre-show about uh it's kind of structured. I guess you're in the open mic, you're going up with, it's a bit of a written idea. It hasn't like necessarily got, okay, like a defined structure, and you might start
Yeah,
talking about it on stage and then see what happens. And if you actually get some good reactions to parts of it, you'll then take it and rewrite it out and try and make it into
yeah.
more of a harder form that then subsequently you'll try and stick to the script on.
Well, I have to say it's slightly changed over time. So what I used to do is I'd write everything out in sort of double spaced lines, learn
Mm,
it word for word, and try to work out what the time of it was and all that kind of stuff. But what I've sort of found since I've started doing it is that it's a very laborious process to do
mm,
that, because if you have to learn everything word for word, that takes a certain amount of time.
Mm.
And then when you take that to an open mic, if only half of it works, but you kind of memorize the whole thing and stuck to it,
Mm.
I find that it gets very stuck in your mind as well. That's what it is. I'll either have to throw it out or just bear with the fact that half of it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to do these days a bit more is write something out longhand, just so that
Right.
I can kind of get the feel of what bits of it are funny and
Mm.
what bits of it could be a joke. And then usually I will, once I've written that bit out, pick out what I think are the funny lines and just
Mm-hmm.
write those as little bullet points,
Yeah, yeah.
and then try to talk them through at an open mic. So it,
Oh, I think we've just lost your audio there for some reason. You may be um, disconnected.
apologies, I shifted and moved the laptop and it unplugged my mic. So sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Sorry, what were you saying?
But yeah, no. So I was saying I have the sort of bullet points of what
Bullet
I
points.
think are the main sort of punchlines that I'm going to go for,
Mm.
and then I try to talk it through in a more natural way, because I think that that's a better way to sound more natural when you finalize the wording.
Yes, absolutely.
But then once you've got something that works, I sort of feel like it's like the lyrics to a song. It's like,
Hmm.
you don't necessarily, when you're listening to a song, think, oh, I know all of the words to this, but as they come along, they kind of
Mm.
trigger the memory in you.
Yes,
So that's sort of how I'm trying to get it to now.
yes, yeah. I mean, I remember when I very first started the course, and I was trying to like memorize a thing word for word, as I had used to done in various bits of acting that I'd done. I just found the process so painful that I immediately rejected that as like, but I was certainly in the early days writing it out and then sort of repeating it with some level of structure. Um,
Mm.
and now more recently I'm kind of just I've got all sorts of different bits and pieces of ideas, and certain things have kind of taken a kind of shape that just from a bullet, I will
Yeah,
start saying it, and then it will have, there's it could be a little bit different each time, but
yeah.
there's usually parts of it that are kind of, in a particular way. Yeah, I'm
But
gone.
but I think that's also, it's something that comes over time, because I think I had to learn it word for word at the beginning. I don't think I
Mm,
could have done it in a new way,
mhm.
because I mean, partly you're not as used to being on stage. You're not
Right.
as used to the idea that you can sort of play with it a bit and you can
Hmm.
talk to the
Hmm.
audience in between and that kind of thing. So the more comfortable you get with that, the more possible it is to write in a different way. Because I
Mm.
remember being quite sort of annoyed, well, slightly frustrated. If I'd listened to sort of podcasts which are interviewing professional comedians, and they'd
Yes.
talk about how they write and all this kind of stuff and
Mm,
how they write
mm.
on stage, and I'd always be like, ah, shit, I don't do that. Like and be sort of down on myself. But I think it's actually probably a process. Is the thing is you're listening to them after they've been doing it for 20 years,
Mm, mm.
whereas actually in the beginning they probably did learn it all word for word and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, I think people definitely they go through different stages of trying different ways. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me at the moment though is just it's the variation from room to room drives me nuts.
Yeah,
And there's certain jokes that I think that I've had. Okay, I'd say like this has maybe got a laugh in, oh, I don't know, let's say like 39 out of 50 times
yeah,
that
yeah,
I've tried it, but there's been 11 times when it hasn't quite, and is that the room or was
yeah,
that
yeah.
me or was I? And it's just the kind of like, yeah, the sort of strange inconsistency. Part of it is, at the open mics, you've got this sort of mixed crowd of comics, and I mean, I sometimes feel I'm getting much better at making other comics laugh than I am at like,
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
normal groups of humans. I mean, I just in the Brighton Fringe, I like, and that's actually one of the nice things about doing the festivals is you can potentially get a room full of normal people,
Yeah,
and when
yeah.
you get like a room full of normal people to laugh, that kind of feels like a bigger achievement, I think.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and it is a different thing, because like also what I have found myself being guilty of is writing jokes that I know are only going to work in a room full of comedians. Like for
Mm,
example, if you write a joke where it's to do with bringers, for example,
right.
nobody
Yeah.
knows what a bringer is unless you work in
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
unless
Yeah.
you work, unless you go into the open mic circuit, really.
Yes.
Um, and I sort of realised that I'd done that because I did some gig where it was just real people, and I
Mm,
said some joke, and I was like, "Oh, hang on, they're not going to understand at all what
right.
that
Right.
is."
Yeah. It's a tricky business. It's a tricky business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just on the point about trying to sort of free up the wording of it as well,
Mm.
one of the advantages I find with that is that if you're not so tied to the wording, if you do start having a conversation with someone in the audience, it
Oh
can
yes.
spark something, and you have to word it slightly differently to make it
Yeah.
fit the context of the conversation. But from the audience's point of view, it sounds like you've just made that up on the spot.
Yes.
So it sort of adds this kind of uh, alchemical feel to it, I think.
Yes, I mean there's something in the pattern that I've noticed, and we were talking with Sang-Don Park about on the show, which is that often things that are specific to the room and are specific to the night are the things that get the biggest laugh, and
Oh yeah,
it's very difficult to replicate a kind of full room convulsive laugh on one of your things that you'll bring. I mean, I think that's maybe not true for like more advanced and sophisticated comedians, but certainly, I guess maybe at our kind of level, yeah,
mm.
that's often where you'll get one of the bigger laughs is because it's
Yeah,
like right, everybody can connect with this is happening here now, and something's been made off the back of that.
yeah. Well, and emceeing is incredibly helpful for that because
Yeah.
the when you start doing that, you have no choice but to acknowledge what's going on in the room and talk about that, and you get much freer with, oh, I've started something here, but I've got a little bit of material that can go into and that kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
that was really helpful for me once I started doing that, for feeling a bit more kind of
Hmm.
um, able to play with the room a bit and talk about what's going on. And as you say, every single time, that's the stuff that gets the biggest laugh.
Yeah, yeah, and so then to come back to the process, phone, laptop, writing, go around, and then over time you kind of develop a war chest of
Yeah,
things that you've got the bullets on, and like they can become, you sort of organize them a bit, and okay, this is this set, and this is this set.
yeah,
Have you got to the point where like you are kind of able to go up and rather than having planned I'm going to do these eight approximate
yeah,
bullets, you can just sort of pick and choose from your memory of the
yeah.
bits that you
Yeah,
have.
absolutely. I mean, that's basically what I try to do. Is I have a poorly organized, but I have a Google folder where I sort of have all of the bits that I've kind of finished,
Mm,
for want of a better word. I've kind of wrung out everything I think I'm going to. I've written them out and I've got them saved as little bits. And periodically, what I'll do is I'll practice those bits just on my own at home, just to memorize, and remember what's going on.
mm,
And then I've got another folder which is bits that I'm happy I've completely sort of written out, but I haven't memorized yet.
okay.
So I'll come back to those at some point and do it. And then I have a work in progress folder where I'm sort of writing things out and trying things. Um, and then for a while, I was trying to sort of do fancy things where I sort of had a spreadsheet where because some of the things
Yeah.
that I'd write down would just be one-liners, and it'd be like, oh, is there a premise there that I could associate that
Hmm.
with, and is there
Hmm.
examples and lists? And I was sort of trying to build all my jokes out like that, but I just found I was just wasting time trying to do admin when what I should have been doing was feeling inspired and writing things.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, and so it sounds like there's not you don't. I mean, I'm just thinking about all the different
Mm.
things that I've done with spreadsheets and Notion and this, that, and the other that I like. Yeah, never really come to anything, and as you say, can easily be a bit of a sort of gardening task. That
Yeah.
is it really getting you any value? And I was going to lead to a question there, which is, but so, do you have any practice that says like I'm going to try and write for 30 minutes a day, do morning pages, get a certain number of jokes done in the week? Or is it all just like as and when it comes to you and you just sort of like, do a bit here, a bit
No,
there?
well, so I mean, it's been a little bit less consistent recently, just because I've just had a lot of other stuff on. But what I
Mm.
try to do is, I'm a great one for lists. I
Mm.
make myself. I have like a morning sort of ritual list things that I do,
Mm.
um, and one of those things is writing. So what I try to do is write for at least half an hour a day,
Oh, yeah.
where, as I say, I pick one of the things that I've written a note about, and I just try to get one A4 page out of
Mm.
whatever I've done. It 99% of the time it's crap, and I don't think it's the point in it is to necessarily have fantastic stuff every day.
Mm.
For
Mm.
me, it's just kind of like, if I'm doing that, one in
Yeah.
every 10 will excite me, and that'll be the bit like, oh, I like that enough. I'm willing to try it.
Mm.
I, the metaphor I had thought of for this a while ago, which is a bit of a stretch, but I sort of see it as like fishing.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
you by writing anything, you're in the
Mm.
river. You've got
Right.
your waders on, and you've got your line out.
Yes. Yes.
And every now and then, one of them you catch will be a fish, but you've got to be
Right.
in the river in the first place, so you've got to be writing.
Yes. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And what's interesting, so we were speaking to Nicky G, who's
Mm,
really coming on remarkably quickly, for
mm,
given how long he's been doing it, and is very, very funny. And he talks about how he does, a lot of this writing, but that he never looks back at it, is what he
right.
says. And then I think a few people that we've spoken to who are kind of like doing a lot of writing, but then just like they don't refer back to it, which I think is
Mm.
really, really interesting. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't know. I've written a lot of things that I've never tried, and I
mm,
don't think that necessarily they're all terrible.
no,
I've looked back at some of them and thought, oh, actually, that might have some legs. I should try that at some point, and then I just
mm,
never get
mm,
around to it.
mm. Yeah,
But I suspect if I was doing it more, you know, professionally and full time, I would try to make a point of, okay, I'm going to go through everything I've got and try
mm,
it at least a couple of times somewhere.
yeah, yeah. Well, no judgment there. I mean, I think it's
Mm,
I mean, we've spoken to over 50 comedians, and everybody's process
mm.
is slightly different.
Yeah.
And I tend to be going back through, not like, well, the whole process changes
Mm.
over time. But yes, it was interesting to me to hear about some people who write and then they're not even sure if they actually regurgitate what they've done from writing, but they're still doing the
Yeah.
writing as there's something about that process. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've recently, like, as a result of doing a bit of directed writing, I've sort of expanded little bits of my show, and
Mm.
I've had some fun doing those bits, and I think that they've got like a lovely, like they're sort of like lovely. What's the word? Is it visualizations? I don't know. Or like I think it's a great man.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean.
It's not really getting loads of extra laughs, and so it's kind of like, oh, was that? Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I find myself very, very confused about what.
Yeah, I think that's another thing is that there's been bits that I've sort of written that I'm almost too scared to try because I'm like, oh, if that doesn't work, I'm going to be upset about it because I really like it. So yeah, I've sort of shied away from those before.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, at least with a kind of like a one man show like I'm doing in Brighton at the moment, there's a certain artistic license that you don't necessarily need. People will be potentially just entertained by the spectacle rather than it
Mm.
needing to be like what a laugh every 7 seconds, which
Yeah, yeah.
I still love to be getting, but yeah, and so are there other other sides of the technology coin that we often look at are AI and social media and recording yourself
Mm.
back and clips and all of these things. Is that a part of your armory, or are you?
Well, I mean, for AI, not really. I mean, I use it for work and stuff like that. But
Mm,
frankly, I mean, if the extent that I would use it for comedy is if I'm thinking, oh, what's something that's associated with
yeah,
X,
yeah, yeah. The
and I
kind of
might look
extended
up something like
thesaurus.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sort of, accidentally use it because I Googled something and it'll give me the AI version. Um, but beyond that, I mean, I try to record sets quite often. I
Mm,
don't do them as religiously as other people do, and I probably should. But I sort of think, well, I'll do it when I'm trying something specifically new.
mm.
Um, but yeah, as I say, frankly, I just often forget. I bring my phone with me, and then I just sort of, by the time I'm on stage, I'm like, oh, it's in my pocket. I'm not going to record it.
Right, right.
Um, and then social media, I don't know. I'm sort of terrible at social media, and I don't really use it in my sort of personal life.
Hmm.
So I don't do it very much. I mean, on my Instagram account, I do a post every, I don't know, like year, something like that. I hardly ever do it, and I
Mm,
never post anything really about my comedy.
mm.
Um, and I know that is, at some point I'm going to have to take it a bit more seriously and do that. But I just kind of think, well, for me, I like the skill of stand-up comedy and trying to get better at that, and that's
Right.
kind of what I'm trying to focus on at the moment. And I feel like I'm not good enough necessarily at the moment to warrant needing to
Mm,
build a social media presence. So
mm,
I'm kind
mm.
of shying away from it. But that also might just be an excuse because I don't really like doing it. So
But I mean,
I
it
can't
sounds
be
very
bothered.
sounds very good for your mental health. If I'm perfectly honest, the you know I think it's a very strange digital toxin that
Yeah.
some of us
Well, I'm
allowed.
lucky because I've sort of slightly too old to have been in the throes of it when I was growing up. So
Mm.
I never kind of got the taste for it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that I do it well, but I'm definitely, I mean, I've just got a very addictive personality. I mean, I'm addicted to comedy. I've been addicted to substances in the
Mm.
past. And these digital substances are, and messages. It's
Well, that's the same thing, isn't it? It releases dopamine in your brain, which is what all drugs do, you know?
yeah, that's yes, indeed, indeed. Yeah, no, I like what you're saying there about, just focusing on the craft and the art of comedy. I think that's absolutely key. I guess one of the things that gets me is this sort of feeling of, yeah, like I don't know how you feel about your progression. It's
Mm.
it just I keep trying different things to I would love well, I would love to be performing more regularly to larger audiences of
Yeah.
non-comedians.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I've tried is like running my own nights, doing these, festival shows, trying to do,
Mm.
gong shows or competitions and failing badly at
Mm.
those, and so on. And it's
Well,
yeah,
that's the nature of those, though, isn't it? So,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, for of course, for some lucky few with nerves of steel or whatever they've got, or the luck on the night and the or undeniable talent, it
mm.
does seem to be sort of a different kind of accelerant. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I just sort of yeah, it's how to kind of like. I mean, I've sort of flipped now from. I mean, I'm still running my own nights, but I'm slightly less focused on that, and I'm kind of back out on more because I'm working in town, and I'm doing more open mics again. But it's
Yeah.
almost like a little bit like I'm back to where I started, and I can't quite work out how to accelerate up from there. But and partly for me, it's I think the big thing that I've done in the last 4.5 years is just try and gig. My assumption in my mind is if the more that I can gig, the more I can practice it, the better I'll get. But
Yeah.
I'm, yeah, I'm sort of, I wonder if sometimes I'm spinning my wheels. But
I know what you mean, but I think it's also kind of it's inescapable to feel like you're spinning your wheels, right? Because I
oh,
mean, I suspect that even the people who are getting into those bigger shows and stuff like that are sort of starting to think, okay, well, why am I not getting the headline spot, or why am I not getting something else, you know? And I think that um, it's such a as a hobby or as a profession, it's such a difficult thing to get far in, and you've got to put
yes,
so much time and effort into it that no matter who you are, you're going to spend years and years trying to get anywhere.
mm,
So it's only worth doing if you're enjoying it at every level that you do it. So to me, what I'm
yeah.
trying to do is make sure that I'm enjoying every single show that I do. So you
Oh
know,
yeah,
uh, if it's one that's particularly difficult because the audience are being difficult or whatever, I try to see it as, okay, well, this is a chance to try some crowd work and see if I
hmm
can work on that. And even if it doesn't work, say, okay, well, at least I tried it and I tried to gain something from it. So I can't remember my point, but that it was.
it was
I
a
think, yeah, in terms
fantastic sentiment.
of progression
Go
and
on.
stuff like that, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that trying to enjoy it and make sure that every time you're on stage you're having a good time, you'll probably get audiences to subconsciously acknowledge that you're enjoying yourself, and then they'll warm to you a bit more, and then you'll start getting better gigs, and it'll start going your way a bit more. I hope
Yeah,
that's my theory anyway.
no, I mean it sounds. I think it's absolutely I'm running that up my flagpole and I'm saluting that. I think all of these things have got to be about enjoying doing the thing itself. Like
Yeah,
I think if you're doing a thing so that you can get to somewhere else, then you're kind of you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot. I
yeah.
mean, not that you shouldn't have aspirations, but like yeah, you
Oh
need
no,
to.
absolutely. And don't get me wrong, I get frustrated that I'm not doing sort of more, and or I've
Mm,
done plenty of gong shows which have not gone my way, and been very upset about it.
mm.
But at least it kind of if you try to treat it as just another sort of uh, stop in the road,
Mm,
um,
mm.
but the journey is the main thing. Then it's sort of easier to deal with those things, I think. And as I say, I think longer term, those things are going to harden you and make you a better comic and make you more able to face it in the future as well.
Yeah, I think that there's got to be some value from the practice, and I think what you're saying there is, I think if you're enjoying it, then the audience can enjoy it, and you know, don't get me wrong. I mean, I always enjoy doing the shows. I guess there's sort of like part of what it is though is that like there's this sort of horse trading to try and get spots, and you know, try and
Yeah,
avoid the, you know, the bringer thing, and kind of like just it's sort of all of that, you know. And I guess, yeah, part of me is I'm sort of like imagining people at a level above me who are finding it easier to get certain sorts of spots. But as you're sort of saying, at like every level, there's always more, and like, yeah, you should be, you know, focusing on enjoying the, you know, the individual moments.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's easier said than done. If you've just had a bad show, or you know, or you see someone sort of streaking ahead of you who has only just started a couple of months ago or something like that, it
Mm-mm.
can be very frustrating. But you know,
Yeah, no,
these things are.
I'm very fortunate in that, you know, I think doing, you know, definitely with the festival shows, I've found a way to get a non-comedian audience, and
Mm,
you know, I'm very lucky to have the, you know, resources and to be accepted by some good venues to do that. So that's, you know, yeah, you one ends up strangely focusing on odd aspects. Yeah, I was going to say, I guess for me with those gong shows and competitions, what I think is, you know, I think maybe some people thrive under pressure, and like,
mm,
so I find myself, I think when the pressure goes up, you know, that doesn't help. It's sort of a truism, right? We're all,
mm.
perhaps the majority of us are like that, but yeah, I feel like I do particularly badly under pressure, but
But
yeah,
but
you know,
isn't it slightly dependent as well? I mean, the thing with comedy as well is it's it is dependent on the audience. The
right.
the skill of, like, you know, the really really top comedians is that they
Mm,
can turn any room into
right.
their friends, right?
Yes, yes.
And the- on the way up to becoming that kind of top level comedian, you're not going to be
Mm,
able to do that from the beginning anyway.
no.
But if you go into a pressured situation and you happen to be lucky that it's an audience that is on your side,
Mm,
that pressure is, it can make you perform better sometimes if you happen to be in a good position where they're coming with you.
yes.
um, the pressure makes you sort of knock it out the park sometimes. I find I've had times at gong shows where walking onto the stage, I was like, these guys are going to hate me, I can tell, I know they're going
Mm,
to hate me. And then the first thing that lands well makes you sort of get a bit excited, and the pressure goes up,
mm.
but you're still, it sort of gives you a little bit of a I don't know, a sort of uh, a heightened adrenaline that makes you
Yeah.
perform slightly better, I think.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and that's because I've just done so uniformly badly in gong show. I've never, never. I mean, it does make me think of it. It's kind of like surfing. It's like you've got to get kind of onto the front foot on that wave, and then you can sort
Yeah,
of like slide down the wave. And yeah, as far as the gong shows have gone, I've never kind of managed to get over that lip of that thing. But I think it's
yeah,
also partly about finding your voice. I think it's partly about finding
sure.
whatever is the kind of like, what are the jokes, what is the kind of way to present, because I think a lot of it is about, you know, the audience, like who's this person, what are they about, and like hearing something that kind of like comes from them, you know.
Mm.
And I
Yeah, yeah.
think people who, you know, like streak ahead, I mean, it's sort of like it's a stop start stop start, but
Mm.
often people who have somehow, you know, some people sooner than others find that kind of like, oh, okay, people are interested about hearing about this angle of things
Yeah,
from
yeah,
me,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it makes sense coming from, or there's like a, you know, mismatch between this person looks like this, but then they're suddenly doing this other thing, and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think I have sort of slightly been toying with what could be my particular persona and sort of and dedicated shtick for quite a while, because I think that I've sort of touched on it occasionally, and I've sort of
Mm,
found elements of it along the way, but I don't
mhm,
think I've got a consistent approach that applies to everything I do. And I find like I've got sort of half the material that I have is sort of slightly self-deprecating, silly things about myself, and some of it
mm,
is very harsh or, you know, dark material. And I kind of
mm,
can't marry the two, and I
mm,
find it very odd. And sometimes I'll have done a sort of slightly darker set, and I've turned an audience off straight away. And the problem
Mm.
with that is that then you can't go into a little bit of whimsy about nicknames you had at school and stuff. So you kind of shot yourself in the foot with that. But conversely, as well, if you get an audience that really goes for that kind of thing, it really helps you. And
Yes.
certainly in gong shows, what I've found, and since I've come up with this theory, I've only ever failed with this at gong shows. But I kind of think because they sort of put the audience in a bit of an aggressive mood in the first place,
Right.
if you match it with slightly aggressive material, they're
Hmm.
likely to go with it. And
Hmm.
therefore, you kind of have a slightly easier ride. Whereas if you're trying to, as I say, get them on board with your personality and a different approach to what the mood they're in, then that's always
Mm.
going to be a bit trickier.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I was going to move us on to the next question, but I'm going to throw my like I have this like idea about what I'm going to do tomorrow. I have this like people say to me, Sam, you have really good energy on stage, and of course, what I want them to be saying, which is lovely to hear, what I
Yeah,
want them to be saying is, Sam, you're really funny on stage. Which they're like. Sometimes they say, well, and funny as well. But I'm sort of thinking like maybe I should just like forget about the jokes and just lean in on the energy. I'm thinking about like tomorrow, just doing an all
yeah,
energy set that's just like all about like I'm almost like I want to articulate, and this is maybe not going to be very funny at all, but I want to try it.
mm.
Like how desperately I want everybody to laugh, right? But and how like but what's this? Can we somehow take this energy and use it to like power a car or what? I don't know. Just kind of like
Yeah.
I'm kind of almost like there's this whole process. I mean, you've got so you've got some fantastic material. I really love your material on Trump
Oh,
and
thank
the
you.
Department of War, and I mean, it's great stuff. And I've got bits and like I say, like I've got the various some bits that have worked 39 times out of 50, and
Mm.
okay, maybe it is just a process of kind of like gradually tweaking and gradually collecting this war chest of things. But
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, well, but everybody's doing that. It may be like
Yeah.
I need to do something different that is really really specific to me that no one else is doing. Not that it's going to be very
Yeah.
funny, but I just I've got to that point where I'm like, oh, I just want to try something, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, I guess what I think is that audiences are much more intuitively clever than people give them
Mm.
credit for, and I think
Hmm.
that they can tell if you're not being genuine with your approach.
Mm.
So if you're trying to do sort of, if as you say, you're high energy and you want people to like you, but you're doing sort of Frankie Boyle style material, it's just
Right.
never going to gel. Whereas if
Mm.
you lean into the person that you are, people will
Right.
connect with that, and then frankly, you can get away with some god awful material sometimes. I mean, some of the jokes that I've written, I've done, and I've just been like, that is so poor, and yet it gets a really good response. Um, and I think it's just because once you've kind of got the energy going, or you've got people to like who
Right.
you are, you can just kind of get away with stuff. And that's a blessing and a curse, because it means you can lean into that personality and get the laughs out of that. But it means you'll mask some of your weaker material, and that
Mm.
will rear its head when you go to a gong show and they don't like you.
Yes,
you
yes,
know?
yes. I mean, I think there's no replacement for continuing to work on the material as well. But yeah, it's interesting the way you phrased that. Is lean into the person that you get away with poor material. I mean, what I've noticed is that occasionally, and I'm emceeing or what have you. I mean, as I've
Mm.
mentioned on the podcast before, I've got big laughs from just even asking a question like, "Is it?" Like
Yeah, yeah,
in that just somehow something about the tone with which I kind of and raising an eyebrow
yeah,
I queried something that somebody in the audience had said, and like why was that funny, why was
yeah,
that
yeah,
fun,
yeah,
but I think that there is it that is a sweet spot if you can get into it, where if you've got this stage personality hopefully
yeah,
related to and then people are just interested about how you react to situations. It's
yeah, yeah. Well, I
yeah.
mean, and all of the sort of pros and all the literature you'll read about it all say, oh, you have to find your persona and then write
Mm.
things from that persona.
Right, right.
And and I do totally agree with that. I just don't think I've found myself a persona that I specifically really want to hone in on and bury myself
Right.
into just yet.
Yeah.
I think as I say, I've sort of seen flashes of it, but I don't think I've quite got it completely together. But really, what I found very interesting is, have you ever done any character comedy stuff, like written anything in a character's voice or anything like that?
Where you actually sort of pretend to be somebody else.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, not really. Yeah, yourself.
Yeah, because I've done two things like that. I've written a 5 minute bit that I do, and I'm dressed as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer,
Okay.
and it's from his perspective, and he comes on and complains about Santa essentially.
Right.
Um, but what I found was really interesting about that is that, like, when I had the idea, I was like, oh, you know what? This is another one of these writing exercises where I just carried on writing and just
Yes.
didn't really think much of it.
Yeah.
But because it was so easy to sort of give him a character and be like, oh, he's pissed off at Santa. Like the material just fell out of me. Like I
Right.
didn't really have to think
Right.
about it, and I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, this is really weird, because once you had that idea in his mind, you were just like, okay, well, how would he react to when Santa does this? How would you
Mm,
react when he does
mm,
this?
mm.
And it made it really easy to write. And similarly, I've done a show which is, I don't know if you're aware, but G&B
Mm.
have done a show a couple of times where you've turned up and done someone else's material,
Oh, okay.
or a homage to another act.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done that a couple of times, and that's really interesting as well, because you sort of, I personally like to sort of write a bit from that person's perspective,
Right.
but just trying to think in that other act's voice makes it, I don't know, for me, I found it really inspiring of a way to find new material
Right.
quite easily.
Yes, no, there was one time I did like a sort of like, what if there were comedy cover bands? And
Yeah,
so, like, which obviously works in music, but why are we not allowed to do it in comedy? And then I
yeah,
had
yeah,
kind of like, I did like a series of like bits of different people. That was a while ago. Yeah, I mean, I went through this phase in the first, what was it, like 18 months of like, just I was writing a new 5 minutes every 2 weeks. It was a bit crazy,
yeah.
but um, yeah, good stuff. Well, let's, I'm really enjoying the conversation, but
Yeah.
let's grab this next question by the
Sure,
balls,
sure.
and the ask about the people that have had the biggest impact on your life and comedy, and sometimes these are people who've already been mentioned earlier in the conversation, but
Sure.
and this could be. Yeah, and we say, like, people say, what do we mean by impact? I mean, it's like the people who influenced your comedy trajectory,
Yeah.
the people who you look up to in comedy, the people in your life. Could have been a
Yeah.
mentor or a teacher or a family member or what have you. I mean, who are the
Yeah.
people who've really affected how your life's path?
Um, well, I mean, the sort of the classic I would say is probably your parents. I mean, my dad was an American who he would talk to literally anyone. You'd get into a lift with him, and he'd face into the lift and start asking people their
Oh,
names
really?
and stuff like that. So I've always been quite and I take after my dad.
Mm.
So I've always been a very kind of chatty person, and you don't have to give me much, and I'll carry on banging on for ages. I'm actually the
Mm.
quieter out of me and my brother,
Oh, wow.
but yeah. So he obviously had a very big influence on that, and he was a very funny guy. Um, he died of a brain tumor when I was 15.
Oh, dear.
So,
Sorry to hear that.
oh, well, no, thank you. I mean, it's a very weird thing, because it's obviously an incredibly influential thing on my life, but it's actually something, it's over half my life ago, and I feel very comfortable with it.
Mm.
But when when you broach it in a conversation, people
Sure.
tend to find it a little bit awkward, which is, I've always found a bit weird. I usually think it's actually to do with other people's sort of
Mm.
feelings about death more than it is about
Sure.
mine, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But having said all of that, it obviously massively affects who I am as a person.
Mm.
And so I remember when it happened, used to I used to get very annoyed that a lot of the adults in my life would let me off for things.
Okay.
So, like, for instance, I didn't do as well in my GCSEs as I thought I should, but my teachers were all very like, "Oh, that's really great, and your dad would be really proud." And I was always
Right.
like, "No, he wouldn't. You didn't know him." and and I was like, I remember feeling very kind of, uh, yeah, what's the word? Just annoyed at the sort of the breaks I was getting for it.
Right.
So I think that made me very determined and hard on myself. When you said before, like, I was hard on myself at comedy. I think that partly comes from, I don't like to let myself off, because I don't
Mm.
think I should have an easy ride because of the circumstance, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right. Yeah.
So I'd say that makes me a very determined person. Having said that, my mum always says that I was determined when I was a kid anyway, so maybe it
Uh,
just sort of amplified something like that.
mm,
Um, my mum's a very funny person as well. So yeah, I'd say I get my sense of humour sort of partly from my dad, partly from my mum, but they're
mhm,
very different. Because as I say, my dad was more in your face American. My mum's a bit more kind of a sarcastic English person.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
and then from friends of mine, I think I sort of developed my sense of humour.
mhm,
And from various very funny friends of mine in the band and at school and stuff.
mm.
And then in terms of like my comedic heroes and style sort of thing, the first person I really remember getting into was Jack D.
Oh yeah.
Um, because there was some free CD of one of his stand-up sets in the Observer or something like
Mhm.
that I got a copy of, and I just played that thing to death. I remember everything about it, and
Mm.
it was one where one of the specific routines was about if the Olympics ever came to England,
Oh yeah.
and about how the comparisons that it would be. Because I remember that so specifically because in 2012 when it did come to England, I started trying to track down that stand-up bit
Uh-huh.
again, but I couldn't find it. So
Wow. Yeah. No, indeed. Well, I mean, well, thanks so much for sharing the background of the family
oh
there.
no, it's okay.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, and you might think less of me for thinking, wow, that would be a great comedy topic. I mean,
Oh no, 100%. I just haven't been to Edinburgh yet, so I haven't put it into an hour.
right. Yeah. Yeah. But it's. I mean, I'm just the what it make. I mean, I was saying I was complimenting you on your material earlier on. I guess yeah, and you obviously you talk about your name and so on. At the
Mm,
moment in your if you're doing a 10, you're
mm.
probably not doing much autobiographical. I mean, not that it would need to focus particularly on
No,
your
no.
father, but at the moment you tend to be you're doing more kind of observations about the world
Yeah,
rather than necessarily revealing much about yourself. Is
yeah, I would say that's true. I mean, I'm trying to do a little bit more of that at the moment.
yeah.
I think it's partly just because, as you were saying before, I have lots of little bits that I've sort of got in my
Yeah.
arsenal, and I'm getting more used to trying to just go on stage and just sort of free flowing between which bits come
Mm.
to mind. Um, I have written some more autobiographical stuff in the past. The problem is, so far, it's not very funny. I sort of haven't got any. There's certain bits of it that I'm like, oh, that I think that's funny, but it's based on an image in my head which I can't quite get out, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'd like to be a bit more autobiographical, but I find it's not it. The times I've tried to write about it isn't as inspiring as maybe it could be.
Hmm.
But I think it's one of these things that I suspect that once I nail a really good autobiographical bit, that'll be a signature thing that really sort of
Hmm.
pushes me to another point in my comedy. But it's not there yet.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, I think one, it's difficult to force these things, and yeah, you want, to a certain extent, things need to come in the fullness of time. I mean, it just
Yeah,
reminds me of John Sharp, who's a friend on the circuit, and
yeah,
is a funny guy, but I think he tends to do, they're kind of like visual gags or puns or what have you.
yeah, yeah,
The time that I've most enjoyed his performance is when he's actually talked about himself and his back. He's got a really interesting background and these
yeah.
things. And I think, if I'm honest, like the comedy that I enjoy the most is
Mm.
where people are sharing something about themselves. And like a
Yeah,
couple of comics I listened to a lot recently, and I'm big like Kyle Kinane and Mark Maron.
yeah.
Their comedy is full of stuff about how their life seems to be, just like, and how like it's about their emotions and their yeah. So I'm
Oh no, 100%. Yeah, and
yeah.
it's what I love in comedy. I've not actually seen too much of John's autobiographical stuff. I'd love to because I love John's. It, it's his sets are amazing in the terms of like what he's done in rooms of two or three people. I'm in absolute awe of. It's amazing, but so yeah, I'd like to see some of the more
Yeah, it's very
autobiographical stuff.
rarely that he does it. I'm trying to encourage
Mm,
to do it more because I think it's really great.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
brilliant.
as I say, I mean, that's the type of comedy I like. And I have tried. I've
Mm.
just not quite found stuff that, or maybe what it is that I'm harsher on that material because I feel like there's more at
Mm.
stake.
Yeah.
possibly
No, no,
for
no.
myself more than anything else.
Yeah, you've got more skin in the game in that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, what I'm finding is, this, like, I mean, last year when I did a show and it was basically it was sort of a gimmick show in it had virtual reality in it, and I was doing improv stand up, and it was like,
right.
I was at arm's length for any of it, and it's like, well, if anybody didn't like any of it, well, I just made it up in the moment anyway, so fuck off. Whereas this year I'm doing a show which is autobiographical by now. It's all about my experiences in Japan and
Yeah,
subsequently,
okay.
and so, but actually one of the things that's I really enjoy about that is it's much 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 easier to remember because it is all stuff that's happened to me,
Yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
opposed to
True.
like this like series of like sets of observation. But yeah, yeah, it's still I'm still trying to like work out what how to take that into a club set in quite in a reliable way.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, there must clearly there's a way to do it because people do it all the time. But
yeah,
I just think trying to force it for me
oh
is probably not the way to do it. I think I'm just going to have to sort of keep ticking away at it in the background, and then once I've got something, I'm like, actually, that's good to go, then go for that.
yeah, no, I think your maxim from before that you were saying, which is like, enjoy each one. And I think then if you're just, you're doing, I mean, it sounds like you've got the regular writing and the regular gigging and, making sure that you enjoy each bit, then I
Yeah.
think that sounds like a perfect
Well,
recipe.
that's what I aspire to. I try to keep it to that. It's easier said
Well,
than
yeah,
done
they,
sometimes.
they, they, they say, no plan survives contact with the enemy, with the audience.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, the enemy. No,
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean the other comedians. No, who's the enemy? I'm not sure. There doesn't need to be an enemy, or maybe drugs are the enemy. Let's move
Well,
on
yeah.
to our fourth question, which is how do drugs affect your perception of reality? And as I'm at pains to point out, I mean, well, one, I should always say up front, please be careful out there. There's lots of substances that can
Hmm.
just because one person had a good experience, another person had a bad experience, who knows what's going to happen to you. Be very careful out there. But by drugs, people immediately think, oh, illegal drugs, but
Hmm.
I sort of mean the broad range of substances. Caffeine, alcohol, ADHD medication. These are all drugs. I mean, there's the American concept of the drug store, um,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I'm really interested to understand what, if any, substances you've depended on in the past, you currently
Mhm.
depend upon, and how, if at all, they affect how you see the world.
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely, I wouldn't say I'm dependent on caffeine, but I drink far too much of it.
Mm.
I'm an absolute wanker who invested in a fancy coffee machine recently, which I spend a lot of my time fiddling with. So I do a lot of that, and I also drink too much alcohol, to be honest. Although I'm trying to sort of rein that in a bit more from just I like beer, and then it's
Mm.
easy to start getting a bit too pudgy if you drink too much beer. So
Indeed.
I try to limit myself at the moment just to drinking at the weekends. So
Right.
which I find is actually also quite helpful because a lot of open mics are during the week, and it's very easy because they're all in pubs and
Yeah.
things like that to get into the habit of I'll just have one or whatever, and it racks up so quickly.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm trying to avoid that. I'm better um, some weeks than others, but
Mm.
but with the sort of non-alcoholic beers nowadays, I find you can sort of have the same experience of having basically if you have a non-alcoholic beer, it's the same as having one alcoholic beer. I find
Mm. Hmm.
you get because you're not really getting a buzz or anything off that, and you still get the same experience. So I'll do
Mm.
that a bit at
Mm.
gigs, but I'm also saving money because I'm getting married next year, so
Oh,
that's also a
congratulations.
helpful motivation. Oh, thank you. It's a helpful motivation to not do as much. And in terms of other drugs, I mean, I'm thankfully pretty free of need of any prescription drugs, but otherwise, I have experimented with a hell of a lot of drugs, I would say, in my time.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, the one that I would do more than anything else probably is cocaine.
Hmm.
Um, that's something I've been in the habit of doing, but then I did used to be in a band, so I sort of
Okay.
feel like it's occupational hazard, wasn't it? And I was brought up by hippies, so drugs were kind of always around in the house anyway.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and not not in your face, but
No,
but
no, no.
it's
Okay.
just never kind of been an issue in our house.
Right.
And I have a very relatively small family, and everyone's very honest about all of that. So yeah,
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, just going back through the thing. I mean, it's interesting to say about the open mic and the beers and so on. I mean, that's when I like the first probably like 3 or 4 times that I did comedy, I got very very drunk. And I realized like, oh, if I'm going to do this frequently, that's just not gonna
Yeah,
work. And I
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
also, it was just post COVID, and I'd been drinking very heavily during COVID. Or I mean, I had, like, prior to COVID, I think I never felt that I had a problem with alcohol. I mean, I just, but I would tend to drink quite heavily at the weekends. Like, that would
Right, yeah, yeah.
thing. But then I wouldn't be, and the fact that I wasn't drinking in the week, it's like, well, obviously I've got this under control. But I think it
Mm.
was, it was sort of a pattern. And then during COVID and the lockdown, I was like, okay, now I'm drinking, whiskey every day, and then
Yeah, yeah,
doing this comedy, and so I had a kind of a clean break for
yeah.
about, well, I guess it's, yeah, well, it must actually be. I've kept on saying 3, but I guess up to like 4.5 years. I mean, this year
Wow.
I've now, like, once a month I will allow myself to have,
Yeah,
a glass of wine with a meal, or what have you.
yeah,
But
yeah.
basically, yeah. I mean, I think it's
Oh, well,
also,
congratulations. That sounds like you got a handle on it. It's
thanks. Yeah, no, it's definitely the, that has been. I think it's been a good thing. I think it's been good for my
yeah.
health.
I mean, I've always thought it's kind of more about your relationship to alcohol than necessarily
Yeah,
the amount that you drink. Because I
right.
know, I mean, I'm a pretty big guy, so I can drink quite a bit, and it doesn't
Mm,
necessarily affect me in the same way.
mm,
Um, but I think it's more about whether you're doing it because you actually just enjoy it, or because you sort of feel like you prefer the person you are when you have a drink. Because I know some people where I definitely think they're in that second camp.
yes.
And I've always been more, I think, in the first camp where I don't think I'm a bad drunk. I think that's the
Mm,
problem. The thing is that I know a few people who I think are slightly bad drunks, and I think that
mm,
that's more of an issue.
yes.
But on the flip side of that, if you're not a bad drunk, then you can sort of lie to yourself and say, "Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not doing anything wrong." But then you sort of realize by the end of the week, actually, I've sort of drunk 5 times the amount I should have,
Yeah.
or whatever. So
Yeah, yeah, and I think for me, I don't think I was ever a particularly unpleasant drunk. Like, yeah, I think more that I was sort of using it reflexively as a way to relax. That was kind of like maybe just as a way to cover up anxiety and not like face those
sure,
things. And I
yeah, yeah.
think, yeah,
But that's what
it's
I mean is that sounds like you have identified what the problem of the crux was, and then
mm.
you're looking for a more healthy way to deal with that, which I think is a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
thing. Yeah,
indeed, and to be less dependent on it. And then for me,
mm.
certainly, there was a sort of like, right, I would get very drunk on a Friday and Saturday night, and then I'd have to drink a lot of coffee to get going on a Saturday and Sunday morning. And it
Right.
was just, like, yeah,
A
it's
couple of lines will sort that.
yeah. Well, and that's so. I mean, like, I've, I'm pretty hyper as it is. People often say, when I'm on stage, they're like, how much coke have you done? But I,
Yeah,
I get pretty excited without needing any additional stimulation like that.
yeah.
But that you mention it in a sort of like, oh, that was never a problem that was ever going to get out of control. You don't feel with the
No, I mean the thing for me is I've never, it's never been something where I'm sort of, selling my body to get it sort of thing.
right, right,
Uh, it's always just been to me. It's something that I know a lot of people who do, and I'll
right,
indulge.
right.
You know,
Yeah,
sometimes with my parents.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Right. Wow. Yeah, and I think for me it's funny actually because I think some people that I know do it occasionally. There was one time when I was at a party, and I'd been offered it, but I was like, and then I was sort of with some people who clearly had done it, and I was
Yeah,
talking to them about my book, and they were like, "Wow, yeah, we've got to really promote this or whatever." They were really excited. They were, and then afterwards they were, like, less enthusiastic, and I was like,
yeah,
"Okay,
yeah.
right, that's the, yeah, yeah, okay, right, I
Yeah,
understand."
that's always the problem. Is yeah. The people who are really interested in your screenplay ideas never seem to call back after.
Oh gosh. Amazing. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And then, so, like, for you, the like, it sounds like, you enjoy beer, you enjoy coffee, you've enjoyed, some lines, but
Mm.
they, it's been, it's under control, and it hasn't necessarily affected how you view the world particularly. It's just doesn't,
Well, I don't know. I mean, I would say I've got a very liberal outlook on these things, and I think that they are. I've done quite a lot of sort of psychedelics as well and stuff, and it does give you a sort of different perspective. But then when you sober up and stuff, you sort of like, oh yeah, that's what that drug does. It makes
right.
you think that everything's really profound or whatever. But I do think that it's sort of changed my mindset on uh, how they affect society in a wider sense,
Mhm.
and how you should treat addicts and things like that. I
Right.
think having a sort of first-hand experience of those things gives you a better perspective
Mm.
on them. Because if your only sort of knowledge of how these things work is from TV and stuff, it never
Mm.
represents it. It's always just sort of what they can do with the lens that sort of represents it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it
Um,
does. It does. Go on.
yeah, no, well, so I was just going to say, I think that's it's more uh, just first-hand experience of it and understanding it a bit more that has affected me, rather than it being anything that any thoughts I've had while high that
Right.
have
Yeah.
affected my life, if that makes sense.
No, no, no. Fair enough. I mean, I'm interesting. I'm sort of reflecting on some of those people we've spoken to recently. I mean, let's for example,
Mm,
I think Nicky G. I think he felt his substance use was quite out of control when he was
right.
younger, and now he's like completely clean, and that's an important thing for him.
Yeah.
And we were speaking to Gil Givens, who had some very strange experiences on psychedelics, and
Mm,
but I think he was very much of the opinion, right? That's that thing
yeah.
there, and that's weird, and that's an interesting perspective, but it's like I think just what you were saying there, which is kind of like it's that's a thing, and you come off it, and it's
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
But then we were just speaking to Callum McIver, and who was a very very heavy drug user for a while, and
Yeah.
is now completely off it, but has found Jesus, and
Right. Okay.
is like very convinced about the spiritual nature of the world, and the
Yeah.
kind of interplay between the god and the devil. It's a very very interesting episode if you care to go back and listen
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
He's had some, like, he very much believes certain experiences that he's had have shown him, like, a whole different perspective on the world.
See,
But
that's what I'm chasing. I really want to go and do enough ayahuasca to meet God, but it's not happened to me yet. So, you know.
yeah, whether you mentioned ayahuasca, there's one of the several podcasts upon which this podcast has been inspired from is Pete Holmes's "You Made It Weird," and he's got lots of friends who are well into ayahuasca, as I think he is also, or at least
Yeah.
some variation on that. But
I think my the thing I've always thought about drugs is you basically the experience you have is very dictated about how you feel going into it and what
Mhm,
you're like going into it. If you're a particularly naturally anxious person, you're more
mhm,
likely to have an odd experience because
mhm,
it will just
mhm,
heighten those kinds of anxieties and make certain things worse. Personally, I'm quite lucky. I don't, touch wood. I don't think I'm a particularly anxious person or anything like that.
mm,
So
mm.
most of the time, I'm very much, oh, this is going to be really fun, and then I go into it and I'm like, oh, it is.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
right,
mainly the
right.
experience that I have, unless I particularly overdo it. And then, but I'm quite good at being able to, in the moment, sort of think to myself, "Oh, this is the drug that's having that effect. It'll wear
Mm,
off. I'll be
mm,
fine." And
mhm.
that is partly because when I was growing up, that's what my parents always told me.
Right, right.
So,
There you go.
so
Wow, the joy of being raised by hippies. Fantastic.
well, there you go.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Wow. I mean, amazing stuff. Well, I think that brings us interestingly to our final question, which is
Mm.
what does it all mean? Life, the universe, and everything. Some people say 42. Other people say, that's far too big a question. How could we ever answer it? Other people, like Intisar Tofi, say, how middle class of you, white, to, like, like be even thinking about this thing. We've got Trump to deal with. We've got the Palestine situation. But I'm really interested into the one, what gives your life meaning, and
Yeah.
also if you've got insight into the bigger picture, which, I mean, Callum McIver last week was like adamant. This is how it is.
Right.
It was. I think he's the first person who's been yeah, who's been sort of very sort of dogmatically religious that we've met amongst the comedians. But yeah, what does it all mean to you, Calvin?
Well, I sort of feel disappointed in myself that I'm not as profound as worrying about the other problems in the world and like your previous guests. Um, I don't know. I think for me, I sort of try to think of it in a sort of hedonistic way, but like in a more sort of traditionally. Sorry, that's a wanky way to phrase that, but the sort of the Greek hedonistic approach,
Sure.
where it's about maximizing your pleasure, but that kind of gets interpreted nowadays as, oh, just having sex and doing drugs and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Whereas the Greeks were more about maximizing your overall pleasure in your life. So it was very much
Mm.
kind of, building a community of people that you feel comfortable with, and
Right.
setting long-term goals in place so that you have good security and things like that.
Mm.
And also excess. I always think that you should do everything in moderation, including excess. So I'm a big fan of binging personally. No, I mean, because I'm not religious, I'm not particularly spiritual and philosophical in that way. I
Mm,
think that you you should be trying to maximize your enjoyment in your life. And
mm,
for me, the way to do that is to work at things and improve my skills. I like to do that. Like that's something that I've always derived a lot of pleasure out of. So sort of long
mm.
term happiness I get out of that.
Yeah.
And having good relationships with people that I'm close to. So, my family, my fiance, my friends, things like that, and just try to enjoy it as much as possible. As I say, I don't think that there is a meaning, and some
Mm,
people find that kind of uh, nihilistic and um, intimidating. It's the kind of thing when people look at the stars and they feel incredibly small, and
mm.
I can't live up to it all. And I just think, well, okay, but you don't have to. Just you're here, so enjoy yourself. Do what you
Right.
can to have a nice time,
Yeah.
as long as you're not hurting other people.
Hmm.
Um, I think, just have at it, do what you like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that sounds, I mean, I can get on board with that. Sounds lovely, really. Yes. I mean, I mean, I still like, I do, like, I guess when I look at the stars and I'm just, I don't so much feel, oh, I can't live up to this particularly, because they seem to be, I mean, I just get blown away by the scope and sweep of the universe, and how
Yeah,
it's strange how, we can get so involved in the bits and pieces of our lives, and one thing, and that's, like the relationship that you have with your partner or your kids or your parents or what have you, is this huge thing. And but then there's, like, the sort of next to infinite, they're not infinite, but like the distance to the stars, and then to the next galaxy, and so what have you. I mean, it's just, we live in this kind of, like, like sort of like bit of like organic scum on the
yeah,
surface of this, like, huge sphere, like rotating around a much larger, burning
yeah, yeah,
sphere, is just, it just seems, it just seems also so bizarre. I kind of
yeah,
like
yeah, 100%.
wonder what's going on, really, eh?
Well, but that's what makes me think. Well, there isn't a point. It's just
Mm.
it's just blind luck. We are just
Hmm.
floating through on a big dirty rock. So, and you only get sort of 80 years if you're
Mm.
lucky to enjoy it. So, do what you can in that time to maximize that enjoyment. But as I say, I mean, I think maximizing the enjoyment you have in that 80 years,
Right.
rather than, because I think what a lot of people would do is just like, right, okay, well, I'm going to drink and smoke and do drugs
Mm.
constantly for 10 years. But it's like, well, then you're going to have a horrible 60 years after that where you're really struggling.
Right.
Whereas if you
Right.
do longer term things that bring you happiness, then you'll maximize your sort of total output, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're playing the long game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I say that. You never know. Could get hit by a bus tomorrow, so it might not be worth
Well,
it. But
well, indeed, you don't know, but as you were saying, you're sort of a relaxed guy, and you're kind of like, well,
yeah,
but you're thinking, well, there's the odds on, maybe there's more, and I should, I don't want to extract all of my enjoyment from this next 60 seconds on the
yeah,
off chance there's going to be a bit more. So why not be involved? It's
yeah. Well, and it's as I was saying, like with the open mic stuff, is like I'm trying to just enjoy those along
mm,
the way, because it's just like, well, obviously the long term goal is what you're working towards, but you got to enjoy every part of
oh
that
yeah,
going forward. And like in a lot of my hobbies, like I do kickboxing,
oh yeah,
and uh, for me, the joy I get out of really focusing on a particular move and then really getting good at that to the point where you can use it when you're doing some sparring and it works. It's sort of like when you get a joke that works, you're just like, oh yeah,
mm,
it's a real satisfaction. Um, and it's born out of a lot of frustration of working at it, and
mm-hmm,
that the moment
mm,
might not feel like you're enjoying it, but you've got to know that
mm-hmm.
it's moving towards something, and you can derive enjoyment from it, I find.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
maybe I'm lucky, maybe I'm just I'm just happy to be working at stuff.
Well, no, that's great. That's great. I think that there's definitely a joy in creation. I mean, I loved what
Mm.
you were saying before about how, a bit like, fishing, that, if you get in the river, and the fish come along. And I think it reminds me of things like, Jimmy Carr, who, some people say is a soulless robot. I mean, when he was interviewed on, Stuart Goldsmith's Comedians podcast,
Yeah,
and he talked a lot about himself and, and he was like, who knows where these ideas came from? I mean, he could be, I come up with fantastic jokes and it's all about me. But
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was, I mean, I think there is this is the strange thing to me about and I think you're absolutely right that we should enjoy, as much as we can, and sort of like, you sort of like hedge your bets against like where you're going to get the enjoyment from and enjoy
Mm.
creating. But I mean, I'm sort of a bit of a fan of Eckhart Tolle, who talks about the universe delights in creating. And I'm sort of slightly enamored by this idea that it seems to me like you can't prove whether the universe is matter first or consciousness first. And
Sure.
our current society says, well, it's obviously, it's matter, it's science. We measure things, we
Yeah.
know that they're out there, and we're these kind of like briefly existing things that somehow get to experience them. But there's actually, there's an argument that says, well, you can't prove it definitively one or the other.
Mm.
The sort of Buddhist thing says like actually maybe it's consciousness first, and the world comes into existence as a result of there being, sort of beings that can experience it. And then there's
Yeah.
weird things that like the root of quantum physics or what have you that seem to
Hmm.
support that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still, I mean, there's this kind of like we're searching in the space of ideas for jokes or better kickboxing moves or
Yeah.
this, that, and the other, like to find things of creation. But there's a in the space of ideas, kind of everything sort of in principle already exists. And
Yeah.
so there's this kind of, yeah, I can't help but feel that there's something bigger going on, if you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if, you know, at the moment of death that it's sort of like right that I mean it could be just like "Dum, that's it," and then that was, you know,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think that well, in my opinion, I don't think that there's anything bigger going on. I think it's just coincidence and uh, it's all just kind of random, I think.
mm,
But I think that certainly there is, well, every idea that could ever exists as a possibility.
right.
It's an electron cloud, I guess, in if you're going to go on the quantum physics kind of
Mm,
side of things.
mm.
And it's just whatever seems to occur to you that works and then resonates with other people in terms of jokes.
Yes, yes.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know where the inspiration comes from necessarily. I think it's just when you turn your attention to something, you're going to notice some things, and if you're attuned to looking for the funny side of stuff, then you can find a way to sort of twist an idea, and if you write it in the right way, other people will latch onto what you meant and
Yeah.
hopefully laugh.
Well, that's that. I'm still working on getting the people to laugh. It's I think
I know.
tickling them is probably the next way if I can get the waivers and the consent forms.
Well, yeah, yeah, that's it. Just an extendable feather duster, and you'll be set.
Well, yeah, it's been done well before, hasn't it? Yes, yes, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're moving towards wrapping up. I'm just, I can't help myself, but yeah,
That's right, because
I just think.
I'm getting more and more pretentious in all of my
Oh
answers.
no,
So.
no, no, no! You're being the voice of reason, and I'm the one like being silly. I absolutely love that, getting in the river, and I have
Mm.
this strong feeling that the ideas maybe have some kind of existence externally to, like what we are, and that somehow we are, like flowing through them. That maybe one, when we die, maybe we'll be released into the river and we'll know all ideas. Who
Yeah,
knows?
maybe.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
uh,
that's a nice idea. Yeah, I hope that's true. I'm not sure I believe that, but I hope it's
no, no,
true.
well, no, I mean, and this is the funny thing I have is like the idea that anybody believes anything is like, why would you believe anything? Like,
Yeah.
like all the things are possibilities. Anyway, it's been a fantastic conversation, and I think our listener Wendy is like, saying, Sam, come on, ask Calvin how I can possibly see his comedy in the near future. Where should Wendy and her friends be going if they want to see more of Mr. Calvin Smith?
On Friday, I'll be coming to a lovely show hosted by Sam Joseph. So that's the one
Woo!
to go to, I would say.
Sunset Comedy, absolutely brilliant every Friday. Yeah, in the Junction in Harrow. Do check that out. But yeah, you're saying you only occasionally post on social media. I guess there's for those screaming fans. There's not yet a place that people can regularly hear when
Yeah,
you're speaking.
I don't know. I mean, if there are baying fans at the door, then you could always message me. I'll be more than happy to let you know where I'm going to be the next week. My thing is just that, as I say, at the moment, I sort of feel like I'm trying to sort of do as many shows as possible and work on my craft. So I'm always around some night in London. I tend to have Tuesdays off because I play football on Tuesdays.
Mm.
But yeah, otherwise I'll be gigging somewhere around in London.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, thanks everyone. And remember, you can help support comedians on technology, people, and drugs by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. May I suggest, I think they go up to like 12 now. 13, why not? Let's keep pushing the boundary there. And do follow us on Spotify, where you can also ask questions and add comments. And it's been lovely seeing those comments coming in. And please do follow us. I say on Spotify, that helps the algorithm get this show out to more people than just Wendy. But we do very much look forward to being in your ears again soon. Last word to our fantastic guest, Calvin Smith.
I suppose get in the river.